October Red is sponsored by SA Security. Maximum security, minimum fuss.
Hey, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good night, wherever you are. It's morning where I am, just about to finish my morning coffee. But what a better way to start the day than to talk about what's been going on in boxing. Listeners, we have had a hell of a week, as they say, in boxing. It's been interesting, as it ever is. And thank you to all of you guys that tuned into the lives that I did last week, where we started from Thursday for the post-presser live discussion, Friday for the post-weigh-in discussion, where we all got together, us as armchair fans, and discussed our thoughts, our opinions, our predictions on how Saturday night would go. I loved it. I loved everything about last week. I loved the coverage. We had some really good work, and I will say it again, especially shout out to IFL TV with Kugan Cassius, Seconds Out with Eamon Khan, and Box Nation with Umar, formerly of IFL. But yeah, those were the conversations that I really listened to, where I got my key bits of information to understand exactly what was going on in fight week. But I will also say a massive credit to Queensberry on their build-ups. It was very UFC-esque, where they went behind the scenes with the fighters. They showed us a little bit more than just their boxing. We got the personality, the dimmer lighting, the non-studio effect, which made you feel like you was there in the room with them. They clipped them up, they posted them up, whether it was on YouTube, X or Instagram. They did a really good job, a thorough job, and that is how I'd like to see fight weeks moving forward. You could say it's because of the budget, because it was under esports, which again comes out of Saudi, part of Riyadh season, with the General Entertainment Authority. But yeah, I like that format. I'd like to see that again moving forward, but not all the time, because if we see it all the time, it's going to get boring and we get used to it. Always trying to innovate, do something different. And we've seen it in UFC. Boxing's teetered around it, but Queensberry nailed it last week. Very, very enjoyable content. The main event, we've got to give Moses Ituama his flowers. I'm kind of at a loss with how the public both like him. I'm not seeing the love yet. They both like him and are not really impressed with him at the same time. The media is on full steam ahead. They are so far up his ass, you can see their eyeballs at the back of his throat. But I mean that in a complimentary way, albeit it's a vulgar way to put it, but you know what it is. I'm always going to tell you how I see it. They were driving him all week, almost like this is the second coming, and we've got to say, of boxing Jesus, which is Muhammad Ali, Cassius Clay, whatever you want to call him. You know, this is the hype that's around him, and I like that hype. But it puts pressure on Moses. As he said in the face-off that he did with Dillian, with Ade, he said, there's more pressure on me. People are expecting me to get him out of there. You know, kind of like, what if I don't? What then? The pressure's on me. And he was very right about that. But he did. He went in there. The fight lasted, 1 minute, 59 seconds. To a meeker, milder, more weaker, subdued Dillian. He saw blood. Dillian rolled into a shot. Ituama caught him with one on the head. That was it. Discombobulated. Dillian was back into the ropes. And you knew it from then. It was over. Knocked him down. Dillian stood up. Maybe okay in his mind, but his legs said nah. His legs weren't having it. The ref waved it off as he saw Dillian protested. And that is all she wrote. A shame for Dillian, really. You know, the outburst from that, or the follow-on from that, was potential, rumours which hit the ground like wildfire, that there was something potentially wrong with his leg. I think Sonny Edwards put up something on his Instagram story saying, I've had a call, I've heard Dillian's got a leg injury, he's going to go over early. Something to that effect. And then what happens? This was before the fight, by the way. I saw it after the fight, but when you look at the timings, it was before. We had more conversations on the Sunday after the fight where Eddie was saying that didn't look like Dillian. Everyone was shying away. Was he potentially injured? But you've got to look at it like this. And those that know me know that I get on with Dillian really well. He's got to sit down and have that serious conversation with his team on what he does next. The fighter in him, the fighter in any of us, if you think about it, guys, you're sat there and you get, blitzed in under a round. Are you going to want to, is that your memory? Is that what you're leaving behind in the sport? Or are you going to say, you know what? I want one more goal. I want a try. I need to redeem myself. Even if I lose, I've got to lose in a good way. Because everyone's just going to see Dillian as food now. A name, but food. And this is the brutal thing about boxing. So he's got to have that conversation with himself more than anything. But he's got a solid team around him that will give him honest advice. He's not surrounded by yes men. I've met them. I know what they're like. They're quite straight up. So we'll see how that goes. So commiserations to Dillian. But an absolute fantastic congratulations to Moses. We've got to ease off the kid. And I call him a kid because I'm nearly 50 and he's 20. And I've got children older than him. So don't take that as an insult if you're listening. We've got to go easy on him. He said, who do you want to see me fight next? Almost AJ-esque. With what he was, how he was coming out with stuff. You can see when people rub off on people. Who do you want to see me fight next? I think the crowd was saying Usyk. I think His Excellency put out a tweet saying, I want to see him in with Usyk. And quite rightly so, Frank Warren and Francis Warren, who manage and promote Moses, said, we will decide as a team. We're not going to rush him. It's nice to hear that his name's been put up there against like the ultimate multi-weight world champion, undisputed world champion. But he's 20. He's had 13 fights. We need to build him. We're still building him. You can say the matchmaking was fantastic so far. So shout out to the matchmakers from Queensbury. You know what you're doing. And that's the way it should be. I would personally like to see him fight a younger fighter. I've thrown Daniel Dubois out there. I'd like to see him fight Daniel Dubois. I'm not going to look at the ages because Daniel Dubois is under 30. I'd like to see that fight very much. Very much so. I'd also like to see Justice Honey in with Moses. Terramona in with Moses. I know those names haven't been mentioned. We've heard Jermaine Franklin, Joseph Parker, Ajit Kabayel. We've heard those names thrown in there. Jarrell Miller even. But I'd like to see him fight someone that's fresher, younger, potentially sharper. Not because I'm on this bandwagon of he needs to be tested. He is being tested. And he's going through the tests. Everyone's saying, oh, but has he got a chin? Catch him then. Get him a fighter that can catch him on his chin. He's quick, so he's not getting hit. He's powerful, so he's taking them out early. What is he supposed to do? Is he supposed to stay in there and get rounds because we want to see him tested? Give him a younger, a fresher opponent. And then see what happens. I like the hype around him. I like it because they're building a star, and that's what you do when you've got a star. You build them. Usually in these first 15 to 20 fights, if you go back through history, and those will say, yeah, but those fighters were fighting a hell of a lot more often than these guys. Yes, that's true. But 15 to 20 fights, those are all learning fights. If you look at it, in the amateur fights, if you've had 20 amateur fights, your class does not really have had much of an amateur career. Yes, professional boxing is different. No head guards, even though they don't have head guards in the amateurs now. You know, longer rounds, as in the number of rounds. Yeah, we've got that. But you've got to think sometimes in the amateurs, they're fighting more than one opponent in one day. You know, so that's why the numbers are higher. So I'd say 15, you know, from his first fight to potentially 15 to 20 fights, they're all learning fights until he starts to go into tests. Me mentioning Dubois is a big test, it's another jump. Me mentioning Terramona, mentioning Justice Honey, no, because they're at the same level career-wise, probably less fights if I bring up their box rec. But they're younger and they're fresher. And just because Justice Honey got knocked out by Fabio Wardley doesn't mean he wasn't winning that fight, because he was boxing extremely well. Fabio knows how to win. He finds a way to win. His heart is unshakable and he can box. But he was being outboxed by Justice. So you can't just make the assumption that, yeah, because Justice Honey's got him out of there immediately, that, you know, Moses is going to do the same thing. You can't say he won't either. But it's a better fight because he's younger. And I'd like to see Moses in with younger fighters. But like Frank Warren, Queensbury Promotions, his managers, his team have said, you know, potentially Jarrell Miller for rounds. They're the ones that are going to dictate who he's going to fight. Not us. And not those in power that are tweeting who they'd like to see him fight. Don't ruin this fighter. Let him build. Let him build correctly. Let him build slowly. And see what happens. It's his career. He's got to make the most of it. But more importantly, he's got to learn along the way. So yeah. Congratulations to Moses Ituama. Commiserations to Dillian Whyte. What I wanted to touch on as well is we've had the second fighter leave Boxer. That fighter is, as you saw yesterday, he posted, how many hours ago is it now? 14 hours ago. He posted on X and put on his Instagram story, not on his main page. Things have been good, but now we strive for great. He's got 4 pictures up there, his belt, some gloves, and him, and entitles it Free Agent Season. The comments under his X seem to be directing him, go to Matchroom, but I think I'd like to see him go to Queensbury. We can talk about Matchroom, who I'd like to see with Matchroom in a bit. But I said, as you know, if you've been listening to the reviews, fantastic, well done to Boxer. They've landed the BBC deal. I don't know how the pay-per-view will work. We've already discussed this, guys. There was a few of you in the comments, quite rightly, laid out how you think it's going to work. But I said, yeah, that's fine, but I want to know who his stable of fighters are going to be. Because you've got this deal, 4 fights a year allegedly. Nothing's been confirmed by Ben. This has come from third parties, other promoters. Who is going to be in his stable? We knew before that time Joshua Buatsi had gone. He'd left and signed with Queensbury. Joshua Buatsi fights in November. His press conference is tomorrow in Manchester. Open to the public, all are welcome. But now we've had Viddal after the broadcast announcement with BBC, Viddal Riley is gone. So that's the second fighter. A lot of the comments, because I posted it up on my Instagram, screenshotted his post, made my own little caption. It's interesting. Viddal is the second fighter to leave promotional boxing company Boxer. Not long after Joshua Buatsi did the same thing a few weeks prior. Buatsi safely secured with Frank Warren's Queensberry Promotions. Where will Viddal go? Some of the answers in there, not just boxing, suggested hopefully Matchroom Boxing. Charlie F._18 needs to be Eddie Hearn, in my opinion. He will promote Viddal really well. James.O2351, I'm just waiting to see what happens with Ben Whittaker. I think Eddie will want him, but Frank basically owns that division. Although now Eddie and Frank are pals, whoever gets him, no issue in making fights. Is it Nazambi_, Eddie might need a body to get moved down by Jay. So get this guy the European belt and then straight up with Jay for beating. We're not buying fighters as food. Viddal Riley is still quite early on in his career, so I definitely don't agree with that. General consensus as well. J Energy Fitness has said Matchroom Boxing. I'm going to be devil's advocate, and I'm going to say I think Viddal should go to Queensberry. I think his ethos, I think his temperament, his style matches Queensberry. You know, he's got a huge presence, but Queensberry don't focus on numbers as in social media and commercial value. They try to target the skill of the fighter. They like to build the fighter and strategically place them on the leaderboard of boxing rankings. That's what they seem to do. They have a traditionalist approach to the sport. I think Viddal by nature is quite old school, so I think that matches in with the ethos of Queensberry. This is my opinion, by the way. This is not fact, because I don't know what's going on, and as at yesterday he's claiming to be a free agent. Viddal will make the right decision for him. Let's see where he does end up. He's got a belt, so he's got a prize, so he's worth something. But I don't think anyone that takes on Viddal Riley is solely taking him on because of the belt, because he's a skilled boxer, as we've seen, trained by his father from the beginning until the end, according to Viddal. He's got a lot to offer, but the belt is definitely a prize, especially with the traditionalists that are Queensberry Promotion that like belts. So we'll see what happens there. Is Viddal going to be the last one to leave Boxer? Is there a trend starting? Who knows? The name that everyone's banding about is Ben Whittaker. Ben Whittaker's going to be next. Is he? We don't know. Nothing's confirmed. I think he posted something saying new soon. I don't know if it was fight new soon or just new soon. He said something along those lines. So we'll see what happens with him. Now I will say Ben Whittaker suits Eddie Hearn. 100% match made in heaven. They are both flamboyant. They have a presence. And Eddie is all about numbers and commercial value. That aligns with Ben Whittaker, and I think that's a match made in heaven. You've got to see what works for who. It's a partnership almost, isn't it? You know, you've got to see what works for you, what will do best for your image, what matches you. And I think Ben Whittaker matches Eddie Hearn with Matchroom Boxing all day long. Now, this is all guesswork, because Ben Whittaker could be staying with Ben Shalom and Boxer. We don't know. There's a conversation that's been held over it. How much money has BBC got for these fighters? Are we looking at potential external sponsorships to help fund these fighters. These fighters these days are extremely expensive. You can't just fob them off. They're saying, well, I believe I'm worth this. We've seen fighters talk themselves out of potential fights because they've potentially overvalued themselves. It's the business that we're in. It's almost like a bartering game. But we'll see what happens. Whatever it is, changes are afoot. I have reached out to Ben Shalom, like I said to you before. That hasn't changed. But I understand why he doesn't want to speak to any channel. He went on his safe channel, his friends within the industry, which is TalkSport, gave his blanket 15-minute interview, that's what it is, and then went back behind closed doors. Because the questions that are going to be asked is potentially budgets. He said multi-year, multi-deal. Which fighters is he going to keep? What's going to happen to Caroline Dubois, Adam Azim, Callum Simpson, Lauren Price, Caris Artinstall, Fraser Clark, Jamie Takivi, Tyler Denny? What's going to happen to all of those? Are they going to stay? These are all the unanswered questions that we spoke about, or that I spoke about in one of my reviews. So we have to sit tight. Yes, the broadcaster's there, but who are the fighters? Did that broadcast deal depend on particular fighters? Did they say, yes, you're definitely going to get this, but you've got to keep X, Y, Z fighters, otherwise it's reviewable? Is it a contract like that? We don't know. Or is it set in stone? Did he say, I'm going to try and keep this fighter, but I can't guarantee it? Are we still okay? Has that already been discussed? These behind closed doors conversations that we won't know about until there's further announcements. And that's where we are, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you to all of you that tuned into the live on Saturday. We got up to 7,000 across YouTube and X. Very grateful for that. Very grateful for you guys. The content will continue. I should be getting Frank Smith on tomorrow morning, potentially a live, so keep your notifications on if you can. Get involved in the chat. The only thing I ask that is you keep it respectful. Tomorrow I'll also be up in Manchester for the Queensbury press conference with Joshua Boazzi versus Zach Parker, Brad Ray versus Lyndon Arthur. All of those fights on there. The light heavyweight fight, which is occurring in November. So the content will keep coming. I've got to shout out my sponsors who've been a great help to me. Security Alert UK, Maximum Security, Minimum Fuss. And we will keep the content going, guys. And like we always say, when we say au revoir, stay ready.
October Red is sponsored by SA Security. Maximum security, minimum fuss.